And then down below is for your specific conversions on how to do it. And for Yardi Professional, the one you would be looking at is the Yardi SQL. Now, when you look at if you go into the page where it has the instructions on how to use it, you're going to see that it will tell you this unique property identifier, okay? That identifier is what the conversion tool is looking for when it goes and imports the data out of TOPS or Yardi or Assist into that property. So you have two choices. You can, during a conversion, you can have the software create the property for you and then tell it what property that you're going to use to copy the information that copies over, or you can have it go into a property that you currently already have set up. Now, the advantage of already setting up the property is this. You can get all your shells created before you convert. And that way, when you're going through the conversion process, you'll say, okay, well, on the first of the month, we're going to convert these 5 properties. You get them all set up. You can get everything that you need, and that's what we're going to do today is set up a shell. And then you run your conversion software and go through the steps in the guidelines and find out which identifier the property is using. Does that make sense?
No. What the identifier? What are you talking about? You're talking about the property ID and.
When you look at the instructions for your conversion software that we've created, like here's TOPS, okay? So its unique property identifier is the coupon code. So you will have to look in the conversion guidelines to find out from your conversion software which one is that. And I will show that to you when I work with your office one-to-one for that, okay?
Okay.
Alrighty. But I'm just letting you know. And the nice part is, it is that you can get these shells set up ahead of time. So if I was going to set up my shell, I would already have my test property, my template, so I can do the least amount of work. So let's set up the property with the premise that we have our master set up. So I'm going to come here, and I'm going to say add a property. Okay, so the name of my new property is going to be, I never can think of names. Anybody got something you think of? How about here? I'll just use, okay, the type is my HOA, and I'm going to copy this from my master. And then my beginning dates are going to go in as July 1st. So I'm going to say, or I'm starting my property August 1st, so I'm going to say July 31st is my last period. Then it's going to ask me, I'm going to say, okay, what things from that master do I want to copy to my new property? So if, let's say, you know the compliance definitions are, that's basically saying what the rules are and the sequence of letters and stuff like that. And those are usually, sometimes you have properties that they're all pretty standard. If you are in some areas, they're newer communities and they all kind of use the same blueprint when they created their CC&Rs. So then you might keep this and copy it. Or you don't use the CC&Rs and just have simpler definitions. And you'll decide this as you go through and you learn the rest of the software. But a lot of things you may copy, okay? So I'm just going to say copy property. And here's an example, vendors. I usually in my master property only put in my management company because they're the only thing that is usually common for all properties. They pay you. Now, if that's not true and you all use the same electric or landscaper or whatever, put them in your master. It doesn't hurt. So It's really up to you. Okay, so it's going in and it's creating my new property, Hunter's Mill.
So at this
And
point,
because
sorry, I had a question. At this point, we haven't actually imported our chart of accounts or our vendors or set up a management company. So should that all be done before we're actually going to set up a new property?
Okay, right. When we set it, that's why I want you to make your master property. So you're going to have your master template. You're going to bring your chart of accounts into that. So before you get to this step, yes, you would want to have that chart of accounts and get the master all set up like we discussed yesterday. Okay, it makes this process easier. That way you don't have to go in and add a chart of accounts for every property, or you know what I mean? So it's just a way to make things easier for you. Okay?
Yeah.
So I have my new property. I'm going to come in, and if it has a legal name like Homeowners Association, I'll put that there. That's the legal name. This is the casual or friendly name. What office manages it? And down here, if I want to put where this is located, I can do that. Now, down at the bottom, you're going to see things like an email address, a copy number, a pre-sort number, and a property code. These do nothing in VMS. This is only information. Some people have software programs that count how many copies you make for a specific property. And so we were asked to put things like the copy there so that they would put the copy machine when you run copies for this property is 18. So they put that there. So if someone didn't know, they could come right here and they could look to see what the copy code is without having to always go and ask somebody else. So this is more for convenience than anything else. Now, right here is a logo. This logo can print on your letters, and some of the statements also use that merge code to bring in there. So if you would like, if you're going to use a template that is looking for a logo, you'll want to put something there. Now, if you use your company logo and you would like it there, then on this information tab here, you'd put your company logo every time, okay? That way, when you render letters for this association, that logo will be on the letterhead, all right? Now, we also have a web tab that we'll talk about at another time, and there's a place for a logo here. This logo is for if you use the website, and once they log in to their account, the logo that is here will show up. So I have a property here called Arborgate. When they log in, when they first log into our site, they see our, the VMS logo. But after the people from Arborgate log into their account, this is the logo they see. So this is completely up to you how you want to decorate your website. But the logo here on the information right here is what's going to be on the letterhead. Okay? And if you already have pre-printed letterhead, then the templates that you choose to do your delinquent letters or your compliance letters or any of those, then you won't use the letterhead because you're going to put it in the printer. I mean, the template with that logo, you're going to let it go with that blank paper. The telephone numbers here, if there is a telephone that is on site at Hunter's Mill, then I would enter it here. All right? I am going to come back at a later time and talk about these templates. Now, we're going to go to the accounting tab. If I had set up a good master template, a lot of things here would have copied over. So I'm going to go to accounting. The row below it, I'm going to start here with information. Now, the budget comparisons, income statements that show your budget versus actual, it does round the budget numbers on the report. I think we may only have one template that shows pennies, but most of them will round. You can choose here if you want it to round to the dollar to the 10th, or to the 100th, and that's just a choice for you. This does have to be set up per property. These other things, by checking this box, means yes. This doesn't control the software. It is mostly for disclosure for resale packages. So and if you check a box, and this is true of anywhere in VMS, if I look to the bottom of my screen, there's a tutorial that asks me the question, so I know if I want to check that box or not. So basically, this is saying, does the management company have authorization to draw checks from their operating account or to transfer? And you would check it if it was yes. Reserves, yes. Do you require a board to sign reserve checks? If you don't, then I wouldn't do that. So you just would go through. Now, if you choose not to do that, it doesn't hurt the software. But if you're using condo certs, you will want to do that, or one of the companies that we integrate that do resale packages. What is very important for you to fill out is this, the tax ID number. So this is where you'll put the tax ID number. Some of the conversions will look their unique property ID. It's not TOPS, but it is, for some of them, the tax ID number. So this is where it's located. So it's on the accounting information. It'll be tax ID number. The next very important thing is your annual accounting period. So our default is that the fiscal year will be January 1st through the December 31st. So the start date here shows January 1st. If you have a property that is not a calendar year, you will want to change this before you start adding any data. We don't really care about the years, you know, and it's not going to even show up. You just need to put in there what the first day of that fiscal period is. All right? So the most important things on this tab to remember is the tax ID and the annual accounting period. There is a place for you to put what your annual income budget for operating and reserves are. It's up to you to put it there. It's information only. Now, over here on the right side, there is a spot for reports, and you'll see it says ACH, AR adjustments. These reports, when I put in a logbox file, will automatically run a adjustments register. It will also run one when I do a manual batch or a manual deposits. If you don't want those reports to print, you can select report, and then no report will render. Now, one of the nice things about VMS is we can also, in our program control, we have this really wonderful tool called iExpert. And in iExpert, down here at the bottom, you can tell it, so here's those adjustment reports. I can say I want them to print them or go to iExpert. So it will print it, but some people like to not waste paper. So they will choose information only, because then, or iExpert, it's so funny. Information Expert is the name of it, and we just always said iExpert, so I forget. Anyway, if you choose Information Expert, then it won't print my reports. It'll go to an area within the software that I can go back and print them later, or I can save them to another file. That way you don't have to waste paper. So this allows you to have the software capture all those reports. So back to property setup. These reports used to be, or are, if I don't say, now if I came in here and I said this adjustment register, because I told it to go iExpert, it will just go there. It's not going to print it. But if I have select report, when I put in a manual deposit, it's not going to generate that report at all. Okay, and I cannot go back and get it later. So certain reports you'll definitely want to have them on. So it would be adjustment register, the AR adjustments, New resident, most people don't really like that, but it's up to you when you put a new resident in. It gives you all the move-in information, charges that you put in, or adjustments you made on the seller's account. And then if you void a resident, you probably want to have that on. Now, you also want to pick what bank reconciliation you want to use. When you select your bank reconciliation, be sure to select one that says consolidated in the title. Did everybody hear that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The reason why, if you don't, when you do a bank reconciliation, you might have made some expenses or deposits operating in some reserves within that GL account number. And if it's not consolidated on your report, it will render them separately, and it's very confusing. And so you want to make sure it says consolidated. All right? So important things here, tax ID, beginning that, and your bank reconciliation and your GL adjustment report. When you choose one, there's two choices. There's one that says entry and one that says combined. So the difference is this. If you have departments, reserve and operating, if I make a journal entry and it has operating and reserve entries in it, it'll print one report for the reserves and one report for the operating. Some people don't like that. They just want it on one piece of paper. They don't want to waste paper. So they choose combined. So it's up to you. All right. The next tab I'm going to go to my AP tab. If I am cash-based, I probably don't have to do anything because I have a good master. It's already at the AP number I need. Okay? Check approval. Right now, your default will be always approved. That just means that if I have permissions to approve checks, then it will be available. The other choices have to do with the web interface for boards to be able to approve. So at this point, your choice really will be either always or employee only. Now, if you know in the future you are going to allow a board member to be able to approve vouchers online, then put it to board and employee, and then you don't have to go back and change it later. If you ever have a property that is cash-based, you would check this box here, and then the software will manage it as a cash-based property. So if I check this box, when I write a check, the expense will get, when I print the check, it will debit the expense and credit cash. If it's unchecked, when I create the invoice, it's going to debit the expense, credit AP, and then when I write it, it'll debit AP and credit cash. Here is a place for credit card information. It's information only. The minimum bank balance is just a reminder. If I'm writing checks and I bring my balance below, in my case I have $100 there, $100, there will be a pop-up letting me know if I make that payment, it will bring my bank balance below my minimum. Will it let you? Yes. Will it let you overdraw? Yes. But it will tell you that you are doing that. You will get a pop-up. Okay? So if you choose to use this, you put whatever you think that threshold you'd like it to be. If that sounds like a nuisance, put 0. This area here is so that you can have signatures digitally printed on your AP checks. The signatures need to be saved as a JPEG and small, like it's going to be on the check. You would click this button here. You would go find the signature. You know what, I know where it is. And then you would attach it. And I attach it. Okay? Now, if you want your board members to have their names on there, we do that in a different area. So these are just in-house employees. And by the way, if I had set that in my master, it would have copied. The AR tab, the beginning one right here, has applied method. If I do a drop down, you'll see there's 3 choices I can have. I can have first in, first out, last in, first out, or posting hierarchy. So FIFO is the oldest, now this is used, by the way, I should back up, when you use your lockbox, or if you allow the software to apply it for you in AR batches, and we will be discussing that next week. The software will apply the money automatically by whatever you have this set for. Now, this will copy from your master, so if everybody's always the same, then you don't need to do anything. But if you have a property that's rules are different, and I know Florida, you have specific rules for your state how you have to do it. So, but first in, first out is the oldest charge to the newest, and then last in, last out would be the most recent charge, so on and so forth. And the hierarchy is this. So if I select the hierarchy, which is probably what Florida is going to be doing, I'm going to go to posting codes, and whatever is first, assessment is on the top of this table, they will the software, let's say Mr. Brown has 5 months of assessments, 5 months of late fees, and I get a check and it's not for the whole balance. How will the software apply it? Now, this is if you let it automatically. You always have the option in the adjustment batch to manually apply a check. So you can always override this. But this is what you would do here. I'd have assessments first, then it would go through and it would apply to Mr. Brown's oldest assessment, and then if there's money left over to go to the next one, so on and so forth. After it finishes assessments, it would look down here and say, oh, late fees are next, and then it would pay off the oldest late fee to the most recent. Okay? So if you need to change this hierarchy, you click on the cell and you move payment up or down in your table. So on your master, if it's always the same, this, you wouldn't have to do anything. All you need to do is kind of move on, okay, unless you do have some changes that you need to make for a specific property. So let's say parking. This property never uses parking fees. So I have a choice. I could come over here and make it inactive, or I can put my mouse over here. I can right-click, and I can say delete AR posting code, and it removes it from this table. Okay? It will not let you delete a charge if you have ever used it on a homeowner's account. It's a part of the record, and you have to make it inactive. Okay? Now, you'll remember you'll want to, on your master, so it copies over, you'll want to have your charges. You're going to want to have your debit and credit associated with it. And remember that your payments are always set up as credits, and the credit side of all credit types are prepaid. Okay? Now, I will explain these other columns when we get to delinquency control. Any questions about the AR posting codes or the hierarchy before I move on?
No.
Okay, wonderful. So here you tell the software what method you'll use. Auto post is used for billing, and I'll just be discussing that in a little while next week. Cash-based, if you are a cash-based property, or if you have one, I know you're all accrual, but let's say you get one and they insist, this is all you have to do. Then the software will manage it. You don't need to change anything here. The software will, when money applies to the software, will then credit income and debit cash. And so you'll only see that relationship. But there has to be a holding account within VMS that those charges are in. And so I always have, you make it your AR account, and then if we ever see any activity in an AR account, we know that something went wrong. So it's really helpful that way. So be sure that you, even if you ever have a cache, just use your same setup, and you'll be just fine. Okay, this is going to be a rule. When we get to compliance, you are able to post fines from the compliance account straight to the homeowner's account from there. So the software needs to know what account code is for your fine, so it knows what accounts to debit and credit. So once you create your fine, here's my fine, and here's my AR account, and there's my income account, then I would just come here and I would select the account, the AR posting code for use in compliance. Okay? Do any of you have states that require you to put your fines on a separate account, not the owner's main account? I know if you're in Nevada, that's a requirement. Do any of you have that requirement? Washington, California?
No.
No.
Okay. So
Florida,
you
we
won't.
are also.
Oh, you have to have them separately?
Yeah, in Florida it's a little more complicated, but yes.
Oh, okay. So you're going to want to check this box right there. So what will happen is when you post a fine to a homeowner's account, you don't have to create the sub-account. It will automatically do it for you, and then you can put the fines on that account. Someone have a comment?
How is the sub-accounts going to look like? Is it going to be like a -1, -2 from the main account, or?
Nope. I'll show you. Sorry. So you're able, and I'm going to talk about this part next week too, to have sub-accounts, and you can create any types that you want, but they all look the same pretty much. This is opening a huge file, and that's why it always takes so long, because it's accessing so many database tables. One of the tricks that I learned in using VMS is I usually just minimize anything that I'm working in rather than actually get out of it, so that I don't have to wait for them to open up. The only time you ever need to close something is if you're making some kind of change to setup and you need those changes to take effect in the module that you're working in. Okay. Yay, I think it came up. Okay, here it goes, and I got to make it smaller so you can see it. Okay, can you see that all right?
Yes.
All right. So I am going to, I don't know that I have a compliance account, but let me go. Bet Michael does. Okay. So I am going to go to compliance. Okay. So in the setup, and like I said, I'm going to cover this day. You can choose what colors you want the compliance accounts to look like, or any of your sub accounts. That way, you can, when you're looking at someone's account, you will identify or say, oh, this, people that are in lien are red. People that are have a compliance account have a blue account. Okay, so here's the homeowner. Down here is owner account. Okay? So this person's account originally came in and it was assigned this number, 90255. Then later on, when they had a client, the software then went in and created the sub-account. So the sub-account number is 65912. The parent account, the one is 90255. And they also have a construction bond and a bankruptcy account. So and these are all open.
I'm sorry, Caroline. The account numbers that are made for the sub, is that something that's auto-generated, or can we tell VMS to go off of a certain, I guess, number sequence we want to use?
Nope. It is assigned by VMS. You have no control over it. You can bring in what we call a prior account number right here. So if your office has a system to where it knows that this property address, they always use a certain number, you can assign that as the prior, and Lockbox or searching will all use that prior account number or to find or locate somebody. But VMS assigns it an account number, and no account number is ever duplicated.
Okay,
ever.
So the account number format should be that 5-digit number that we're seeing in there under the
Well,
account,
most
correct?
of the time you'll see that, but I do have people that have thousands of accounts. I mean, you know, they have 400 associations, so they're up to 6 digits. But it will start with a 5-digit number.
But essentially, it's just numbers. It's no, because for ours in particular, we have letters and then numbers afterwards. So that's why I wanted to ask. I mean,
okay, you can use the you can put it in the prior account. No, he won't ever change that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So this is what the sub account would look like. So for people that do need would like the software to create that sub account when posting a fine, rather than you having to physically add the account before you post the fine, then you would just click this and it does it automatically for you. If there's an open active account and you post a second fine, it will just post it to that same account number. It's not going to create another one. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Coupon. Most of the time in your master, you will have gone in and set up the basic stuff. So if this had been a master that I copied over, I would have seen something like this when I came in. So all I would need to do is update the information. Now, when you set up in your master on this coupon tab, these are the different companies that we have the specs that on how to create the file that they require when creating your coupons. So if you use South Data or BB&T or Optimal Outsource, you would select that one. Okay, this one I selected was South Data. The information up here used to be, because South Data, we would send them a PIF file, and then a couple of years ago they said they no longer accept them, and you fill that information out independently. So you don't really need to fill this out. Where you need to start is here. So I need to export. So your type will be in-house or export. Product type. So your choices are coupons or statements. So if you create statements only, or you do, then you would make one for statements, or if you do coupons, you choose coupons. And this will determine where you see it under the entry for coupon maintenance of what type of file is going to create for you to send to your third party. Okay? So I have coupons here. Now, remit is usually the name of the company. So if I had this in my master, I just need to type it in. Hunter's Mill. And then it already has where to send the payment. And then where do I want the return address to be? So Hunter's Mill, care of my address. Okay? And if you also would choose the scan line. Now, if you are Alliance or Bank Mutual of Omaha, your choice is OCR. They use OCRA. Other banks, if you're using someone other than that, you'll have to ask your bank what scan line type they would like you to select, and here are the choices. Okay? I just happen to know what those are. The GL, when we first start a property, we want it to be on GL no post. My master would have said that, and then I just copied those over. So on my new property, all I need to do now is put in my account number. Remember I said that the routing number would copy over. So I'd come in here and put my account numbers in, and then I would put my first check number. And that makes it pretty simple. If this one is different and you didn't have anything in your master, then you would go to the bank, add the bank that this property uses, and that way when you link that account number to the bank, it's there. Okay. And so there's not a lot I need to do here. My department's copied over. So unless you needed to add a new department for this property, you're done. Okay. So I've done that. I'm going to compliance. We have a whole class just devoted to that and a whole class just devoted to delinquency control. The next tab is employees. These were the employees that I had linked to my master, but I'm going to just delete them really quick. Now, does it delete them from my setup? No, it just takes them off this tab. Okay. So, 2 reasons I would need an employee linked to this property. One would be because I'm limiting that employee to just this property. So in my setup yesterday, when I created that employee, I said link, whatever the thing was, link properties or link employee. So that person has to be on this tab for them to see Hunter's Mill. Now, if I didn't check that, everybody could see it. There is a requirement. Every property in VMS must have at least one person who is linked to the property as a manager and the leader. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to grab Greg here and his type. This is where it's not the correspondence, it's the type, manager, and then leader. So every property must have one person as a manager and the leader. Can they be 2 different people? Yeah. You know, I could add myself. And you can see I can just drop and drag. That way I don't have to get out, go to property setup, to employee setup and link them there. I can do them right here. So I could do this and I could go like that. Now, whoever the leader is the reason you would have one is for 2 reasons. One, so that you can add things to the calendar and other things if you logged on as the employee to the website. But the biggest reason is when you print letters, the software is going to look for who is marked as the leader. And whoever is the leader, their information will be merged into that letter if you use the merge codes to bring in employee name, title, all that good stuff, signature. Okay? So the leader's name will be on the letter. All properties must have a manager. Now, I don't know if you'll remember this or not, but when we go back, when we learn about compliance, one of the biggest things that happens, reason we get a ticket for a new management company, is they'll go to print their compliance letters and nothing will print. Nothing comes on the screen for them to edit, doesn't go to the printer, it does nothing. And the reason why, all compliance letters are looking for who the manager is. And if you don't have a manager, you could have people here, but unless I have a type manager, those letters will not print. Okay, so you're going to make sure, and I'm going to remind you this when we do compliance, but you need it. So every property at least needs one. Okay?
Hey, Carolyn?
Yes.
So, okay, so is this applied to all letters that are generated in VMS?
It all depends on your merge codes. I mean, some people hard code in certain letters with certain people names, but if you're using a merge code to bring in an employee's signature, name, title, information stuff, it will look for the person you have indicated as the leader to bring into that letter.
Okay, because I know for our compliance letter we sent out in for collections, it's our AR name that we populate in those letters, not the manager. So I just wanted to know there should be a merge code where we could just specify to have the AR contact info populate instead of the manager, correct?
There is, we have two different letters that you can select, but the basic merge code is looking for the leader. So
okay.
We have this one letter, it's called assistant. So I have some people who have two. They'll use the employee one, and they'll use that for the AR stuff, and the assistant letter, and then for the manager, they'll have an assistant, so then it'll pull in his information. So there's workarounds.
What happens if you have more than one manager in that field right there? Is it going to allow the person to choose, which one to use?
If I had two like this, it'll bring my information and Greg's.
In the letter?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. The fee tab, this is used by you if you want. It's more information than anything else. So if I go to the type down here, you can put things on here that you just want to disclose or have there for someone to know what this association charges for a capital contribution, what they charge maybe for NSF fees, whatever. Now, this drop down that I have here, this is all custom by you. So if you went to Program Defaults, and you go to that code tab that I had shown you yesterday for your GL categories, we go to this code tab a lot because in this tab is going to allow you to customize the software for your needs. So I'm going to go to codes. I'm going to do the drop down, and I will see something that says fee types. And if I hit an F, it would go down there for me. Okay, so there they are. So now I can change one, or I can go in here and add a new one by clicking on the last cell on this table and adding. So whatever I have here under this code, and I assure you, you guys probably have one or two currently, that's what you'll see here. So you can say NSF, you can say, where we use this if you want to. Most of the time, something like this is just going to not have a program use. How much do I charge for an NSF? $25, note, all return checks. Okay, so this is just where you can disclose different fees. It doesn't link to anything. If you choose not to use it, that's fine. Insurance. You can, if you use the same broker for all your insurance, you could actually put that on your master. If you look here, you have codes, then you have insurance. These are the different insurance companies that I have, that my associations either use that policy or use that agency. So this is where you would add that. So here's State Farm. That is, once again, under the program defaults. You'd only add it once, and then in property setup, you right-click, add insurers, and now it shows me that list. So I can go ahead and choose, and then I can come in here and put the different types of policies, liability, general, notes, policy numbers, stop and start dates. This is handy, especially if you're really large and you want to put down or run a report that says, hey, let me know anybody who insurance is expiring, a certain date range. It will pull those up, and then you can start going through and, updating your policies. Most of the time they let you know, right? But just in case they didn't. You can put the underwriter, the policy types, any notes about it. You expand it. You can even go further as far as the contact information and more information here. This same idea is done in vendors also, that you can go in and put insurance and even attach a copy of the policy in on the vendor, and I will go through that when we do AP. But the nice part is you can run a report and say, hey, give me all my vendors who policies expire in September, and then I can go through and write letters or to those vendors and say, you need to send me an updated insurance proof of insurance. Okay? Now, vendor. If I copy them over from my master, they'll all be here. Now, if I don't need someone, I can right-click and delete it. It doesn't delete it from my master vendor list. It just deletes it off out of being linked to this property. Okay? Now, one of the things you are going to want to do sometime this year before January, when you convert any vendor that you paid that you're going to have to 1099 next year, when you'll want to come to the vendor, you'll want to come to, see this as beginning balance, this header right here. And I'm just going to go here. We'd never send South Data one, but just because you can see it easy. If I paid South Data and I was going to 1099 them, I would put the amount that I paid them as of today. Okay? Then, whatever I pay that vendor out of VMS plus this amount will get included in the total when I render my 1099s in January. That way you don't have to do two sets. The software will do it for you right here. Okay? So that is really here, that's the only thing you need to do is unless you only have one or two, then you would right click, say add vendor, and it would show you the list that you brought in, and you then would drop and drag them over to be used at this property. Okay? I will ask you to do a vendor list to import in before we do accounts payable, and that accounts payable class is scheduled for August 25th. Save a little while to get it together. Okay? All right. Title companies, this is just information, that you can put. Most of the time, this is done for people that have an in-house collections department, and they'll put title instructions here for using for liens and things like that. All right. So I have covered every tab here except for the HOA tab. Any questions before I go on? You're all good?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So if I was in your position, I would do everything I just did before I did my conversions. I would go in and set up as much information as I could before I brought in the homeowners. I like to think of property setup as a good analogy is they're like the federal government. This is where all the rules and regulations are set up on how to manage and run this state or this association. Homeowners don't live here. Homeowners live in what we call communities. And those communities are established on this tab here, HOA. Okay? So under the HOA tab, the first tab is just a general for that association. You have a place here that you can put your contract stop and start dates, how often you do physical inspections. Now, this drop-down, if you went back to Program Defaults and you go to Codes, is here. It's under Inspection Periods. And when you see yours, I always think this is really weird that they have biweekly, and you won't see weekly. So if you want to add something that's not currently there or change something that is there, then this is where you would add those requirements. Another thing that is on that HOA tab. Can you see? Okay, is community type. So when you do a drop down, here's a list of community types. Your current software doesn't have very many. Where you would add to this is under the code tab, you will see a drop down called community types. And I never seem to do those. There we go. So you can add. So that way, this doesn't do anything within the software as far as, except for it just lets you define what kind of property it is. Okay? And like I said, information usually means just that. It's information. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say these are just a homeowners association. It's an independent association as opposed to a sub. And if I want to, I can put in, that it's a sub and what the master community is. Right here lets me indicate when their annual meeting is and where that annual meeting is located. This doesn't go anywhere. Okay, it's just in-house information. Now, what does affect other things in the software is your contract end date. If I have a contract end date of the 31st and I have a website going, it will lock the homeowners out if you don't update that end date on the 31st. So when they go to log in on the 1st of September, they will not be able to access the web information. The software assumes that you no longer manage it, and that's a privilege that has gone away. So if you renew contracts and you use this, be sure to update that, okay? Because that will affect stuff. Okay, now when you first create a property and you go to communities, it's going to say no communities defined. Every property or association needs to have at least one community because that's, like I said, that's where the homeowner's information is going to come from. Now, create a community. You come up to the top to the ribbon again. You do a drop down, and you say Add Community. Now I have this new community here, and I have 5 tabs. The name that it uses for here is whatever I put here. Now, how many communities do I need? Well, that depends on your billing needs, okay? So, in Hunter's Mill, I'm going to just call it Hunter's Mill here, if everybody in my community gets the same fee, $100 a month or whatever it is, a flat rate, I only need one community, okay? Because under this billing tab, I will set up and say, bill anyone who lives in this community X amount of dollars, okay? I'll just go there really quick. I'll show you. So I'm going to bill owner accounts. The name I'm going to give this is monthly assessment. And you can call it anything you want. You have to have that AR posting code to link it to. So it's assessment, so it knows what to debit and credit. The type is how do you want to bill. So if they were getting a fixed amount of $100, that's what I'm going to choose. I would say fixed amount, and I would say how often, monthly, annually, quarterly, or semi-annually. So I said monthly. I want it to show on their account as billed on the 1st, and then I put how much I want. Okay, so that is one way to bill, but we have others. But before I explain that, I have a question. Do any of you have any other needs besides a fixed amount?
Yes.
Okay, what would that be?
We have a percentage of square footage in the building,
Okay.
and I'm not sure what some of the other ones are, but I know we have a percentage.
Okay, so maybe also a assessed value. A lot of condos have that. 10%, 1%, 0.896 0.72% of the common area. Okay, so if that is the other need, then you could say, I want it to be a percentage of unit value or a square footage, and it also takes it one more. It lets you round it to the dollar or the tenth. Okay, so this is exact. It does the math for you exactly, or you can have it round to dollars and cents. Okay, now, if you do a conversion, that probably be one of the things, that information, if it's a percentage of unit value or square foot, if it's in your database, it should come over. If you were setting up a property for the first time, you would have to enter that information in so the software would know how to bill. That is done back in this unit maintenance when we bring in the homeowners associations. So if I went, trying to find one that I've done it with. Okay, so on this community, this is, we're going to talk about this the next time we meet. The unit value is imported and it is housed on this tab here called unit maintenance, and that shows me my percentage of unit value. So whatever I enter in, so if I said in my setup it's a percentage of unit value, and I said the unit, and I give it an amount. So if I said it was $50,000, it would take this percent times 50,000, and that's what it would bill. Okay? And so if I was to add up all the unit values here at the end, this would equal 1.0. Okay? So if 50,000 was what I was going to be billing, and this is added up to 1, then it would be exactly 50,000 that was getting billed, because it's going to take that percentage. Okay? Now, if it's 50,000 and I'm rounding, of course, then it's going to be different. Okay? So, you know, give and take, whatever. But that is where the percentage unit value goes. The square footage goes here. So if I put 1,800 square feet, my choice when I set up my billing will be, you know, what they get charged per square foot, 10 cents a square foot, whatever, and then it will calculate that and bill it accordingly. Do any of you have it done, billed on the assessor's value?
Under
I
Creek,
don't think
no.
so for us.
No.
Yeah, I have only had one do that, and it's for the, so, and they have 4,500 units, and it's a nightmare because every year they have to update this value because they get charged 2% of their assessed value. But we can manage it, no worries about that, but I just wanted to ask. Okay, so this is where that goes. So if I was back here in setup, property setup, and we're going to cover this when we do in AR again about the billing. This is where you would change that. But the reason I'm bringing it up now is this. So I only need one community if I'm doing it fixed, percent, or square. But what happens if some people are 100 and some people are 150, and it has nothing to do with something that's obvious? You know what I mean? Like some people, maybe they have, no kidding, I've had this. They had 2 chimneys versus 1, and they were condos, and so 2 chimney people got charged more because the association cleaned the chimneys. So that's what they did. So what they did, or what you would do, is if you have a situation where it's not based on any of that, but you do have different levels of billing, you need more communities. So if this was that, here I could say Hunter's Mill, and I could say number 1, number 2, or I could say one, you know, however you want to distinguish one community from the other, that's up to you. I have people, or some community people will have associations that have homeowners associations, will have single-family homes and townhomes in their community, and the townhomes get a higher rate than the single families. So they might have here, they might say single family, and then They'll make another community. So I go back up to the top and say add community. And there we go. And then I'm going to say Hunter's Mill Townhomes. Okay? So and the purpose would be because I'm going to move people into different communities, and some will be the ones that get charged. One rate will go into this one, and the other ones, you'll notice that this updated here when I got out will be charged a different rate for single families. Okay? So that's how you'll determine how many communities you need to create when you create your property. And you can create the communities and should beforehand, especially, so in that TOPS conversion, remember what the identifier was? On their instructions it said coupon code. That's right here. So you have to create a community. So I would put that identifier here. So if it was 13 or if it was HM for Hunter's Mill, then that's what I'd put. Whatever your identifier is in your current site, whatever you have set up in your software. So make sure you double check if you're with Yardi or with TOPS. TOPS, this is your identifier. So you'll want to make sure that's there. Now, you will also want to make sure for coupon codes, because this is where it's going to look to match up your coupon files that you get from your bank for your lockbox, that you put it in each one, okay? So that's where you put the identifier for lockbox, for your conversions, for your validation tables, for your coupons. It all gets pulled from right here, okay? Okay. Whoever that was, if you'd mute yourself. Any questions about how many communities that you need to create?
So if I'm understanding this correctly, if we put in that the dues are set based on an ownership percentage, we would only have to put in one community because it would be calculating based on, okay, all right.
Yes, exactly. But I'll have to tell you, I've been doing this for a long time, and I know that a lot of softwares that were created 10 years or 15, 20 years ago didn't have that ability. So what people had to do was divide up the homes into sections and say, okay, these people get this amount, and they didn't realize at the time it was based on the percentage of value. And so they divided it up separately. And if you still kind of follow that and don't know what the percentage of value is, then you can make the communities for that. And so that's up to you, but we do have the ability to do it in a simpler manner by using that unit value, okay? Now, right now, the coupon information here I have not ready. I'm just lazy. I don't want to have to think about coming back here. So I always put print coupons. If I think that I'm ever going to create a coupon file for this association, I'm going to put print coupons so that when I go later to do it, it's going to be there and I don't have to come back to property setup and change it. So that's just what I do. You can leave it any way you want, but to be able to later use and generate a file to a third party, it needs to be on print coupon. And I'll talk about that when we go and do coupon maintenance. Here you have a place, not required, to put where that community is located. There's code. If they have a separate tax ID that is not this one here, then you can put it right there. But most of the time you don't have to because you have already put it on the county and it's the same. You can put how many units are in there and notes about it. This is purely information, doesn't go anywhere. But what is important here, is how many communities do you need, my coupon code, your default department. So when we add charge here, it's going to say assessment, this chart posting code, dash whatever my default department is. So it's going to be operating. And then you need to tell it what bank account posting code, the AR posting code for your bank when you use Lockbox or create an ACH file it's going to use. So I have payment CAB here. So for this to work correctly, I would need to, in my AR posting codes, make sure I have it linked to my bank, right? So it's linked to the right account number. And then, so that's 10,000. And when I go to the chart of accounts, that 10,000 has my account number and my routing number. Because if it's not there when I go to create a coupon folder or when it goes to put the money into that GL account number when it posts the deposit, it's going to go to the wrong place. Okay? So make sure that, you know, you have all this information in there. It will give you an error, by the way, if you don't. So, and then, of course, I have two communities, so I will need to do that twice. Okay. So, Hunter's Creek, we're talking about you would have a situation, and I'll just put this out there and you can think about it and we'll discuss it more in detail later. But can you see where if you needed to create a financial, if you have a department called X community, Y community, if you had the default department here, then all the charges that you make will be that with that community, and then your AR posting code level would be community. So it would know. Okay? So,
yes.
So just that's basically how it links all those. So you will not need in your posting codes a separate posting code for each of those communities because the department will do that for you. Okay? So you would still just need the generic assessment, you know, late fee, not one for X community, Y community. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah, people sometimes try to make things a little bit harder than they need to, and the software manages it really well, so you don't have to worry about that.
Thank you.
And if you have separate bank accounts for each community, that's the only time you would have a different, like a payment code, because it's going to be linked to a different GL number. Okay, that would be the only time. That would be the only code if the community had a different account number. Okay, but if they don't, they have one shared. As money comes in and pays those assessments, the software will tell you out of this account how much was collected for each community by that department. Okay? All right.
Yes, thank you. Yep.
You're welcome. The access one is just information that you can store information on things like the gate, what system model numbers. If you have transmitter settings, you can put it here. It's just a place to put it. You know, the types you control. You create what types you want there. That's access entry. So I would have to program default, and I go to access entry. I will see that, so you can just add to it. Okay? The builders, do any of you have units or lots that are billed to a developer at a discounted or non-billed or not billed at all?
Hunters Creek, we're dealing with a builder and developer right now.
Okay.
But I'm not sure. Okay, go ahead.
So if they get billed at a lesser rate, or if they get billed not at all, you have to. I'm going to show you how to link that developer to the unit that you bring in. Okay, but first you have to add them to the community tab. So you will need to go to the developer tab in program default. You would come to the top. You would say add builder. It will look like this. And a builder or developer to us is the same thing, okay? And then you add the developer and all their information. I wish people would stop playing with my databases. Okay, so here's Stonewood LLC, and then of course I would have put all my things there. Now I have the choice, I could link it here, but when you first set up, a lot of times you don't have the community. So I can also do it here by saying add builder, and then I can drop and drag them into the communities that they own units. Okay? So, and that is done at a community level. So if I would need to do it to both if they are in both communities. Okay? So first thing you would want to do is add them to program default and then link them to the community. We have a compliance tab here because we have some people that had more than one recorded document that they wanted to put the information for this association, and on our compliance tab we only have one tab, so we put an extra one at each community level for you. The majority of our people don't need this, but if you do, we have extra tabs, and like I said, it's per community. So if you had more than one recorded document you want to reference in here, there you go. Okay, and I'll bring that back up again in compliance. The last tab is our resale disclosure. This is used by your office underneath our two tabs, General and Project, that you would fill out. If you do your own resale packages, you can fill the information out here, and then you have all that information stored when you create it. There is a template that will draw information out for resale packages, but it's if you're using Condo Search or one of those people that we integrate with for your resale packages, this will need to be filled out, and just at your leisure, come back here and fill that information out per property for those resale packages. Okay, so this mostly if you're going to want it to be stored in-house, or if you integrate with a third party. Okay, we have covered, we set up this whole property, and we did it in an hour and 20 minutes with me talking and taking time. So you can see that if you have a master already set up, this process can go pretty quickly. You can get those shells set up pretty quickly, correct?
Yes.
So what I'd like to encourage you is, if you haven't or if you need help, let's get your master set up. And then I know that I'm sorry. Did Hunters Creek, did you decide that you didn't want to go through and do the conversion? You just want to use just a test database?
We are going to talk about that after this call.
Okay.
We haven't decided yet.
If that's your choice, that's fine. So when we create your sample property or your test property, you will do, I don't have my thing in here, but what you will do is you'll just copy using one of the chart accounts that we already did. But I do want you to set up a property, and you call it sample property, and then when we meet next time, we're going to import in using VMS import those homeowners. Now, I hope to have a conversion ready or already done before our next, when we do that for Brink and Keystone, but if we don't, because we're still working out kinks, we'll do the same thing for you. And then you'll use that you'll use our sample property for playing around, and then when you're ready, you'll have the other to play with, and we can delete the one that I'm going to give you. So that'll be, based on need. But if you want to use your chart of accounts, you're going to need to create it and we need to get that imported in. So I do have the recording from yesterday all converted, and I'm going to be putting it up today, so that if you don't remember how to do the VMS import, you can watch the video, or you can just let myself or support know, and one of us will walk you through it, because it's real simple, and we're all very schooled at doing it, and we're more than willing to help you. Okay? So please get your chart of accounts done if that's the road you're going down, but you will need to create a sample property and play with that part of the training today, because if you're not out in there playing and using it, you're going to forget.
Right.